Our next session explores a topic at the crossroads of neuroscience, therapy, and education: neuroplasticity and vision rehabilitation in neurodiverse children. It's a powerful reminder that the brain isn't fixed, it's flexible, adaptive, and constantly reshaping itself. For neurodiverse children, understanding and supporting that plasticity can be life-changing, especially when vision challenges are a part of the picture. In this session, we'll uncover how targeted interventions can open new pathways for learning, communication, and connection, and how vision just isn't about sight, but about how we process and interact with the world. So get ready to be inspired by the incredible potential of the developing brain and the science that helps us nurture it. To guide us through this fascinating and vital conversation, we are honored to welcome someone who brings both clinical expertise and heartfelt commitment to her work. Dr. Deepti Gandhi, an outstanding alumna of the Science University, a proud recipient of the Jewel of India and many other awards, a leading voice in vision therapy and neurodevelopmental care, was conferred upon doctor's degree by Thames University of UK. Please join me in giving her a warm welcome to the stage. I would like to request Sister Vidya Praveena to escort Dr. Gandhi to the stage, please. Ma'am, the stage is all yours for next 20 minutes. We will be all ears and hearts.
Sai Ram, my most humble salutations at the lotus feet of our Lord Bhagwan Satya Sai Baba. Sai Ram to all brothers and sisters, to all teachers, and my favorite Sri Satya Sai Vidya Vahini volunteers. So I have also rewired my brain in understanding what angels are. I used to think angels have wings, wear white dresses, and they float around and, just give what we want. But I saw angels in a different form in the volunteers of Sri Satya Sai Vidya Vahini volunteers. I am awed by your dedication with humility, and I really want to thank each one of you all. A special thank you to Karuna and Saurabh for giving me this platform to speak about vision rehabilitation. Today is Deaf Blind Day declared by UN, right? So I would just like to teach one sign to all of you all. Yesterday, Brother Ratnakar said that in the morning and just before you go to sleep, say what to Swami? I love you. So this is a sign for I love you. So this is I, this is love, you. So we just combine all the three and say, I love you. So we can say it to each other also. Okay. So I'm going to start my presentation. How many of us know that visually impaired people can see? How many of you know that? Yeah, good. So 80% of visually impaired people have vision. They have residual vision. And this residual vision can be retrained because of the neural plasticity. Okay? So my program is about vision rehabilitation. So whatever residual vision they have can be redeveloped, retrained because of the neural plasticity. I'm not going to talk much about neural plasticity because all of you all know about it, right? So first of all, before we move on to what is vision rehabilitation, let's understand what is vision. Vision is a combination of visual acuity. Acuity is the ability of the eyes to see, right? You can see things in front of you. That is the ability of the eyes to see. When you go to check your eyes, he gives you a chart, right? So he's actually measuring your visual acuity. Next is visual field. So people with visual impairment may also have a visual field loss. Anyone knows what the visual field loss is? Wow, very good. So there is central field loss. Do you all want to experience what it is like? Just close your fist, keep it on the bridge of your nose and look straight ahead. What can you see? Can you see a central field loss? You can't see what's at the center. Okay? Let's do a peripheral field loss. Just don't close your fist completely. Keep a gap here. Close one eye and look through it. It's like a tunnel vision. Yeah? That's a peripheral field loss. Some of them have a right field loss. They can't see on the right. Some can't see on the left. Some can't see in the lower field. So there are so many types of field losses that they have. Okay? The third one is visual skills. I think Satya Sai Vidyavahini is already working on visual skills. So there are two types of visual skills. One are optical and one are perceptual. When we see, our eyes and brain work together. For optical skills, the eye does more work, and for the perceptual skills, the brain does more work. Okay. Then there are environmental factors which affect your vision, my vision, and the vision of a child who has low vision or has some residual vision. For example, contrast, color, illumination. If the lights are off, can you see? Do you have normal sight? No, right? So there are so many factors that affect our vision. So we must know that also. Then there are other environmental factors, there are other factors that affect vision, which the science is really growing. Yesterday, our sister, what is her name? Lakshmi, occupational therapist. She was talking about it. She was talking about the senses and then the proprioceptive, vestibular. So our senses are controlled by the vestibular and the proprioceptive. I'll give you an example. I'd gone for a movie, okay, and the seat was wobbly. I said, I don't want to sit on the seat. What's wrong? My eyes were normal. My hearing was normal. I could taste the popcorns, but I said, I don't want to sit. How many of you all have that? How many of you all can't sit on a wobbly seat? Most of us can't concentrate, right? Because the vestibular sense, the proprioceptive sense controls our senses, right? So one must know before vision rehabilitation if he has any difficulty with sensory integration. Motor functions, right? Motor functions also affect our vision. If I'm not able to sit erect, can I see properly? No. Okay? So if these muscles are tight and my neck is turned this way, can I see what is on this side? Right? So motor functions also affect vision. Cognition. Do you all know vision is a cognitive function? So if your cognition is not good enough, you are not able to interpret what you are saying. Okay? So when we do a vision rehabilitation program, we first assess all these. Okay? So what are the principles of vision rehabilitation? It is talking about neural plasticity. The fact that there are parallel visual pathways makes it possible for some parts of the brain to receive visual information when other parts are damaged. The brain cortex has more than 30 specialized areas that handle specific areas of visual information. When I came to this field 30 years back, we used to think only the occipital lobe is functional, then the vision is normal, right? Today it is believed that the whole brain is responsible for vision. Okay? So if the occipital lobe is damaged, there are other centers in the brain which can take up the function of vision. Neural plasticity, we've been hearing it for the last 2 days. The brain is capable of reassigning functions of the damaged areas to the healthy region if taught to do so. This is very important. So a neurotypical child learns to use his vision by himself. But a child who is born blind or has low vision has to be taught how to use his vision. Interventions must be based on interrelatedness of vision, posture, and sensory processing. This is said by a leading occupational therapist. She's telling us the interrelatedness, what I told you just now about me sitting in a wobbly seat and I couldn't just enjoy the movie, right? So when you are working on vision, we have to understand the other factors also. A multidisciplinary approach in diagnosing, assessing, as well as designing adaptations and habilitation. We have to have somebody like an occupational therapist, a developmental pediatrician, an optometrist, who can all come together and create this program. Okay? So I have developed this vision rehabilitation program on the principles of WHO guidelines of vision training. WHO doesn't call it vision rehabilitation, it calls it vision training. Dr. Leah Hyverian is a very senior ophthalmologist from UK, and she has her own ideology on vision enhancement. There's Dr. Gordon Dutton from USA, who talks about vision rehabilitation in children with brain injury. Then there is Mary Moses' model on vision recovery. How is vision recovered? At what stages? We're going to look into it. Also, Perkins School for the Blind USA, I've taken some principles from there also. So you all must be wondering that if a child has residual vision, how does the child recover that vision? So it happens in stages, okay? And we must understand what stage he is. Why do you think we must know? Why do you think we must know at what stage he is? So that I can start from that stage on, right? Okay. So the first stage, the child sees light, moving objects, color, form, visual acuity. The second stage, focusing, shift gaze, tracking, developments of hands-on random grasping. Stage 3, integration of sensory and motor skills. Towards an intentional grasp, touch to stimulate visual attention. He starts forming visual images, forms visual concepts, right? So this is how vision is developed. So if I'm assessing a child and he's in the stage 1, then I start from stage 1. If I find the child who's already in stage 3, I will start from there. So what are the aims or goals of vision rehabilitation program? To support and guide each child in making the most effective use of their vision. Yesterday somebody was asking me, do you think blind children can see? What can you do with that vision? Okay. So some of them can use their vision for mobility, to move from one place to another place. Some can use that vision, which is developed later with the vision rehabilitation program, to maybe do their daily living skills. Some of them can even use that vision for reading and writing. Next one is to promote independence to the use of vision, complemented by a multisensory approach. It is not that if a child cannot do an activity with his residual vision, we can complement it with the tactile, with the auditory. Just now, Mr. Ajmal, the presentation that he gave, he spoke so much about it. The photographer, I think her name is Gayatri, right? Gayatri? Gayatri, yeah. So wonderfully, she said the canvas, because of hypotonicity, she has moved on to acrylic because she can give the strokes without any resistance, right? So if the child's vision is not good enough, we can always aid it with the other senses. To foster development across all areas by encouraging the use of vision alongside training of other senses for complementary skills. To offer a wide range of opportunities for the child to explore and learn and understand their environment. So, when parents come to me, they say, the doctor has told me, take this ball and move it like this. I said, for how long? Okay, for how many months? And what after that? Don't know, ma'am. So they are actually teaching the child some optical skills. But we can't stop at that, right? So you have to give them varied experiences. Today you're doing it with a light box, tomorrow you can just take a bangan, big one. Tomorrow you can just wrap your dupatta and flash light on it, so you can give them varied experiences. So now we are going to talk about the vision training program. What WHO calls a vision training is vision rehabilitation or vision therapy also. So it has got 3 parts: vision stimulation, visual efficiency, and visual utilization. Wherever I go, people only do vision stimulation. We have to go beyond that, move beyond that, right? How many of you will go to the gym? Before we go to the gym, we warm up, right? Does the whole part of your exercise, do you just warm up? No. Then we move on, today I am going to do the upper body, today I am going to do the lower body, right? So we are then developing muscles, either upper body or the lower body, right? So that is efficiency. And the last is, once you have developed those muscles, you're going to use it in daily life, right? Suppose somebody has had a fracture, okay, he goes to the physiotherapist and he trains those muscles. And after that, what? He starts using those muscles. So that's exactly vision stimulation. You first stimulate the vision, then you work on the visual skills, they become efficient, and then you use them. So you're going to see what they are. So Smith and Oates has given what is the definition of vision stimulation. So when I read it, you'll understand what it is talking about. The area of the brain that is responsible for vision will remain underdeveloped unless stimulation and visual experiences are provided. How efficiently the child functions visually is a direct result of quality of sequential presentation of visual stimulation. Okay, so this is purely plasticity, okay, working. So you have to work with the child, allow the child to use his vision, and then only it will be rewired, right? Vision is not automatically learned process in children with visual impairment. Remember this. If there's a neurotypical child, he will just learn by himself how to use his vision. The optical skills will develop by themselves. But for a child with low vision, we'll have to train him how to use that vision. So these are some pictures. How do you do it? We use high contrast pictures, objects, we use light emitting toys, light boxes. See, there's a light box here. Can you see it? Okay. Sensory integration needs like vestibular and proprioceptive have to be met when we are in the process of training the child. There are certain brain stimulation, like Dr. Zair was telling us to tap the, the temples. So there are various tappings of the brain. They're called handle tappings. I think it's the holistic approach of neurodevelopmental learning experiences. You all can Google it and find out. So even the speech therapists use it. So it stimulates the brain, and then the brain can absorb better. So these are pictures of me doing vision rehabilitation with our children. So now we have done vision stimulation, we come to visual efficiency. We are going to train each skill one by one. So what is visual efficiency? Natala Baraga, she is the mother of low vision. Okay, she thought about what can be done with this residual vision. Okay, and she said that we can train the vision, and she has given us the definition of visual efficiency, the most inclusive of all terms: visual acuity at distance and at near, control of eye movements, accommodative and adaptive capabilities of the visual mechanisms, speed and filtering abilities of the transmitting channels, and speed and quality of processing abilities of the brain are all related to visual efficiency. So if you read the definitions, actually talking about visual acuity, visual field, the factors that affect vision, the visual skills. Okay, so everything together, we have to put it together and train the child. If my child's visual acuity is 10 centimeters near, and I present an object at half a meter, it's going to be of no use. If my child has a right field loss and I start presenting things in the right field loss, it's not going to work. So visual efficiency is training the vision, but taking into account all those 4 factors which we started with. Visual efficiency is unique to each child and cannot be measured or predicted clinically with any accuracy by medical, psychological, or educational profession. Nobody can say, okay, his visual acuity is 1 on 10, this one's is 5 on 10. No. Okay, each child is unique, and each child's visual efficiency, to what extent he can develop, is unique to him. So when we do the visual efficiency program, we must remember the visual response continue. First, the child will attend. So attention, awareness, understanding, light, people, objects, fixation, tracking, first near, then far, peripheral, central, familiar, unfamiliar, parts, whole, simple to complex, large to small. Okay. So this is the visual efficiency, some pictures. What do? We do first the optical skills, okay? If anyone knows what the optical skills, like it's the focus, fixation, tracking, scanning, then we move on to the perceptual skills, okay? Like maybe discrimination, figure, ground, form, constancy, so we slowly move on to that. When we are doing the visual efficiency, we have the best contrast, illumination, distance, size, whatever we have assessed earlier. We fulfill the sensory integration needs of the child. We give the best posture possible, or many a times, we give them some vestibular input, some proprioceptive input before we start our sessions. The activity should be age appropriate. I also am at the hospital, so we get babies who are just 5 months old, 6 months old. So the activities for that baby will be different from a 3 or 4-year-old. It will be different from a 10 or 12-year-old. Right? So the activities have to be age appropriate. So these are some more pictures of children doing the visual efficiency program. We are working on their visual skills. So now we did the vision stimulation. We did the visual efficiency, where the vision is developed enough and now we want to use that vision. Okay? How do you use that vision? We have to do some environmental modifications. When you came up the stairs, did you see on the red carpet there were patches of yellow and black stripes, right? So that you know, or if you see the curbs of the steps, they're colored in yellow. So people with low vision or even senior citizens can't see where one step ends and the other one starts, right? So that enhances their vision and they know where the next step is, right? So those are environmental modifications that we can do. Use of optical and non-optical devices. There are a range of optical devices that are available today in India. So optical devices are those which use a lens, okay, to magnify. The non-optical devices like a reading stand. The picture here to my right shows, it shows a typoscope, that black slip there, and the child can see only one line at a time, okay? Only one line, plus it's also giving it a good contrast. Then orientation mobility skills, right? They have to be taught how to use the cane, how to take help from another person, right? So if there's a blind person, we walk in front of him and he holds your hand, right? So you should know how to take help or protective techniques. Okay? So all these have to be taught in the vision utilization program. Daily living skills. Suppose we are teaching the child to have bath. So if the tiles are white, you can bring a red bucket and maybe a white mug, so there's contrast, and then he can do it himself. If there is a soap dish, okay, if the soap is white, you can bring a dark colored dish so that he can see where it is, right? Reading, writing and maths also can be taught in the visual utilization program with all the adaptations and modifications. Recreation activity, wonderfully in the morning, Madam told us the snakes and ladders and the Ludo game, that's what's tactile also. So they also have a right to play, they also have a right for recreation. So why not modify the environment, modify the play for them so that they can also enjoy. So these are some pictures of vision utilization. So things that one has to remember when we do the vision rehabilitation program, we have to always use a good contrast, use color preference, distance of the object from the child's eye, size of the object. Many a times when the child is low vision, we always enlarge it. Okay? Don't enlarge it too much. You must know what is the magnification level. You can't enlarge it too big. Like example, you all had this peripheral field loss, right? You could see only like from the tunnel vision. If I expand it, if I enlarge it too much, you will see bits of the whole picture, right? So it is not a rule that you have to always enlarge it. Illumination, good light. Light should fall on the working area, not on the eyes of the child. Position of the child, okay? Visual acuity of the child, visual field of the child, time that is required. Dr. Zair was talking about time. Give them more time, right? In the case of a child with low vision, because the picture that is coming is distorted and the brain takes more time to understand what it is, to decipher what it is. So we have to give them more time. Age of the child. So like I gave an example, if there's a 7-month-old child and 7 years child, the activities will be different. Age and onset of disability. If a child was born blind, and if a child becomes blind after certain years, there is a difference because a child who has become advantageously blind has concepts, so it's easier to train him. Okay? Impact of additional disability. Today is a deaf-blind day, right? So we work with deaf-blind children also. So when there is deafness along with visual impairment, we have to understand a lot of things. They don't have concept, okay? You cannot attract attention with a sound. Right? You have to, they have central vision. Okay? They have a peripheral field loss. So when you sign, you have to sign right at the center, not on the sides. So what is the impact of the other disability we must know? There are children on the spectrum, right? They have sensory integration issues. Okay? So we have to give them some vestibular activity, proprioceptive activities, and once they calm down, then we can do the vision rehabilitation program for them. So I'm just going to show you some cases of different of children with different disabilities. So this child, when he came to us, The MRI CT scan didn't say anything. The neurologist said there is nothing wrong with the child. We sent him for an LD assessment. They said nothing wrong with the child. Okay, but he used to bump against objects. Okay, and at times his handwriting used to go up like that. Right. So the OT said, you just work. You do not, like somebody yesterday said, ma'am said that labels are for bottles, not for children. She said, it doesn't matter what he is, let's work with him. So we started working with him. We worked on his reading, writing. He had certain characteristics of cortical visual impairment. So we looked into those characteristics. We worked first on his optical and then perceptual skills. We also trained the mother in the strategies that she could use at home and in the school. We coordinated for the school, with the school for his inclusion in the mainstream school. And I think by now he must have completed his graduation. He came to us long back, yeah. Then this little one, he came to us. He was referred by a neurologist for schooling and rehabilitation. He behaved like a blind boy, very cranky, very irritable. So we worked on his vision stimulation. He was just not cooperating. So the OT came in and she started sensory integration therapy along with our vision program. He later moved on to a special school. He started attending to objects and people. He later started recognizing basic concepts like color, shape, animals, birds. His mobility improved with lessons in orientation mobility. His crankiness reduced and he was a joyous social child. Yeah. This girl is very dear to me. She was one of the first 2 or 3 cases I started vision rehabilitation with. So she was just 1 year old when she came to me. And the dedication of the mother, I think, really helped. And she posed as a totally blind child. If anyone knows what's West syndrome, where they have convulsions, continuous convulsions. Like they have 40 to 50 convulsions a day. So, of course, they taper slowly, they reduce with medication. So, like somebody said in the morning, the tone of your muscle affects the tone in the muscles of the eye also, right? So because she was cerebral palsy, the tone in the eye muscles also was affected. Tracking and scanning was very difficult for her. So we worked on her oculomotor skills and slowly we introduced her to the perceptual skills. She went to a special school and when she was ready, after a vision utilization program, I told the OT, this girl has the cognitive ability to read and write. And she scoffed at me. I said, you see, one day she'll read and write. And she did. So we worked on the other modalities and we taught her reading, writing. But of course, we took help of the tactile and auditory. She uses her vision for the daily living skills and social integration. Vision rehabilitation helped improve her speech as she learned lip movement. A lot of the speech therapists teach them how to produce sound, with the lips. So earlier she couldn't see what is the lip movement, right? So with vision rehabilitation, she could see the lip movement and her speech improved. So, she was hardly 3.5 years old and we were doing some light box activity with her and her friend in the class, his name was Sanskar. It's so difficult to pronounce. And then she pointed out to a picture and she said, Sanskar. I said, what is she saying? Mother said, she's saying Sanskar. So, vision also helped her to see and she could assign who that child was, according to her. Okay? Her occupational therapist was also happy with her improvement in vision as it aided her for head control and hand functions. Okay? This is a child. He had brain injury and MRI showed bilateral symmetrical occipital cortex involvement. He was a very non-cooperative child, very hyperactive, wouldn't sit in one place. And the mother said, please teach him how to read and write. We said, okay, let's go slow. So we put him on a sensory integration program first. Okay, and slowly when his hyperactivity reduced, we asked the occupational therapist what are the activities that we could do along with vision. And with that, so we slowly started working on his visual skills. He was later admitted to a mainstream school and used to come to us for remedial education where we paid attention to his reading, writing. His teacher wrote messages to us that A can now write, A can now do math. Okay, so vision rehabilitation helped. This is today's deaf-blind day. Again, this child was not labeled as deaf-blind, but she was IUGR intrauterine growth retardation. She had profound hearing loss, CAPD. You people are working on CAPD. So it is central auditory processing disorder. She was hypotonic, and the MRI didn't show any abnormality. She, of course, had optic atrophy. We started her when she was barely 5 months old. Very, very difficult to attract attention of a child who is profoundly deaf. Okay, but slowly we trained her. You know, we needed to know where to sit, how to attract her attention, and we started with tracking, scanning skills, and pre-communication skills. She started learning with whatever residual vision she had because she was only 5 months old. Slowly she developed other perceptual skills. She achieved her midline. I think Lakshmi ma'am was yesterday talking about midline, right? So first you get it physically and then it comes visually. So we had to work the reverse way. We had to bring it visually and then physically. So the conclusion is we have to have a comprehensive understanding. Visual rehabilitation planning must consider all factors affecting vision directly or indirectly. Okay, like we did the color, contrast, distance, size, all that. Sensory integration needs, the motor needs, the cognition, all has to be considered when we do the vision rehabilitation program. Multidisciplinary approach. I alone cannot work. I have to have an occupational therapist, a speech therapist, a developmental pediatrician's report, a neurologist report, which will help us, the ophthalmologist, optometrist, everyone can come together, and that is how it really works. Awareness of government support. Sometimes we just work with the child, but we don't tell them what they can avail of. What are the schemes? What are the government rules? Right? The acts like RPWD Act, Right to Education Act. So that is also a part of a rehabilitation. We tell the parents, we inform them. We tell them that there's a UDID card, what is the use of it, how you can use it. For the tax purpose of the parents also. So we also inform them about that. Individualized training. Every child with visual impairment is unique. It is a spectrum. Understanding the specific cause and implication of impairment is vital before planning vision training, because every cause has different implications. Just now you saw central vision loss, implications are different. Peripheral is different, right? Brain injury, is cortical visual impairment, the implications are different. So we must understand what's the cause, what are its implications, and accordingly work on the vision rehabilitation program. Thank you.
A big thank you to Dr. Gandhi for shedding light on such a powerful topic. The blend of science and empathy in your talk was truly eye-opening, ma'am. You've helped us see the brain not just as an organ, but as an opportunity. I would like a big round of applause, please. I would like to call upon stage Srimati Suman Vijaypurkar and Srimati Dipanvita Das to come forward and extend a token of our appreciation to our honorable speaker.